A foot is a unit of length in the imperial and U.S. customary systems of measurement. Since 1959, both units have been defined by international agreement as equivalent to 0.3048 meters exactly. In both systems, the foot comprises 12 inches and 3 feet compose a yard. Historically, the foot was a part of many local systems of units, including the Greek, Roman, Chinese, French, and English systems. It varied in length from country to country, from city to city, and sometimes from trade to trade. Its length was usually between 250 mm and 335 mm and was generally, but not always, subdivided into 12 inches or 16 digits. The United States is the only industrialized nation that uses the international foot and the survey foot in preference to the meter in its commercial, engineering, and standards activities. The foot is legally recognized in the United Kingdom. Road signs must use imperial units, while its usage is widespread among the British public as a measurement of height. The foot is recognized as an alternative expression of length in Canada, officially defined as a unit derived from the meter, although both have partially metricated their units of measurement. The measurement of altitude in the aviation industry is one of the few areas where the foot is widely used outside the English-speaking world. Historical origin. Historically, the human body has been used to provide the basis for units of length. The foot of a white male is typically about 15.3% of his height, giving a person of 160 cm a foot of 245 mm and one of 180 cm a foot of 275 mm. These figures are less than the foot used in most cities over time, suggesting that the foot was actually a synonym for a shoe. Archaeologists believe that the Egyptians and Mesopotamians preferred the cubit while the Romans and the Greeks preferred the foot. Under the Harappan linear measures, Indus cities during the Bronze Age used a foot of 13.2 inches and a cubit of 20.8 inches. The Greek foot had a length of 1/600th of a stadion, one stadion being about 181.2 meters, therefore a foot being at the time about 302 millimeters. Its exact size varied from city to city and could range as much as between 270 millimeters and 350 millimeters. But lengths used for temple construction appear to have been about 295 mm to 325 mm, the former being close to the size of the Roman foot. The standard Roman foot was normally about 295.7 mm, but in the provinces, the pesdrushnus was used, with a length of about 334 mm. Originally both the Greeks and the Romans subdivided the foot into 16 digits, but in later years, the Romans also subdivided the foot into 12 unciae. After the fall of the Roman Empire, some Roman traditions were continued but others fell into disuse. In AD 790, Charlemagne attempted to reform the units of measure in his domains. His units of length were based on the toise and in particular the toise de la écritoire, the distance between the fingertips of the outstretched arms of a man. The toise has 6 pied each of 326.6 millimeters. He was unsuccessful in introducing a standard unit of length throughout his realm. An analysis of the measurements of Charles shows that during the 9th century the Roman foot of 296.1 mm was used. When it was rebuilt in the 10th century, a foot of about 320 mm was used. At the same time, monastic buildings used the Carolingian foot of 340 mm. The procedure for verification of the foot as described in the 16th century by Jakob Köbel in his book Geometrie von Kunzel of Chemfeldmusen und Absehnis. Stand at the door of a church on a Sunday and bid 16 men to stop, tall ones and small ones, as they happen to pass out when the service is finished, then make them put their left feet one behind the other, and the length thus obtained shall be a right and lawful rood to measure and survey the land with. and the 16th part of it shall be the right and lawful foot. England. The measures of Iron Age Britain are uncertain, and proposed reconstructions such as the megalithic yard are controversial. Later Welsh legend credited Dyfnwal Momad with the establishment of their units, including a foot of 9 inches. The Belgic or North German foot of 335 mm was introduced to England either by the Belgic Celts during their invasions prior to the Romans or by the Anglo-Saxons in the 5th and 6th century. Roman units were introduced following their invasion in AD 43. The Roman foot had been previously standardized by Agrippa at around 296 mm or 11.65 inches. Following the Roman withdrawal and Saxon invasions, the Roman foot continued to be used in the construction crafts while the Belgic foot was used for land measurement. Both the Welsh and Belgic feet seem to have been based on multiples of the barleycorn, but by as early as 950 the English kings seem to have ordered measures to be based upon an iron yardstick at Winchester and then London. Henry I was said to have ordered a new standard to be based upon his own arm in, by the c. 1300 Act concerning the composition of yards and perches traditionally credited to Edward I or II. The statute foot was a different measure, exactly 10/11ths of the old foot. The barleycorn, inch, ell, and yard were likewise shrunk, while rods and furlongs remained the same. The ambiguity over the state of the mile was resolved by the 1593 Act against converting of great houses into several tenements and for restraint of inmates and enclosures in and near about the City of London and Westminster, which codified the statute mile as comprising 5,280 feet. The differences among the various physical standard yards around the world, revealed by increasingly powerful microscopes, eventually led to the 1959 adoption of the international foot defined in terms of the meter. Definition: International foot. The International Yard and Pound Agreement of July 1959 defined the length of the International Yard in the United States and countries of the Commonwealth of Nations as exactly 0.9144 meters. Consequently, the international foot is defined to be equal to exactly 0.3048 meters. This was 2 ppm shorter than the previous U.S. definition and 1.7 ppm longer than the previous British definition. The international standard symbol for a foot is feet. In some cases, the foot is denoted by a prime, which is often marked by an apostrophe, and the inch by a double prime. For example, 2 feet 4 inches is sometimes denoted as 2-4, 2 feet 4 inches or 2 feet 4 inches. Survey foot. When the international foot was defined in 1959, a great deal of survey data was already available based on the former definitions, especially in the United States and in India. The small difference between the survey and the international foot would not be detectable on a survey of a small parcel, but becomes significant for mapping, or when the state plane coordinate system is used in the U.S., because the origin of the system may be hundreds of thousands of feet from the point of interest. Hence the previous definitions continued to be used for surveying in the United States and India for many years, and it denoted survey feet to distinguish them from the international foot. The United Kingdom was unaffected by this problem, as the retriangulation of Great Britain had been done in meters. U.S. survey foot. The United States survey foot is defined as exactly 1,203,937 meters, approximately 6999304800609600000 0.30480060996 meters. In 1986, the National Geodetic Survey released the North American datum of 1983, which underlies the state plane coordinate systems and is entirely defined in meters. An NGS policy from 1991 has this to say about the units used with the new datum to define the SPCS 83. In preparation for the adjustment of the North American datum of 1983, 31 states enacted legislation for the State Plane Coordinate System of 1983. All states defined SPCS 83 with metric parameters. Within the legislation, the U.S. survey foot was specified in 11 states and the international foot was specified in 6 states. In all other states, the meter is the only referenced unit of measure in the SPCS 83 legislation. The remaining 19 states do not yet have any legislation concerning SPCS 83. Since then, 42 states have abandoned the non-metric versions of SPCS 83. 7 states continue to keep location data in survey feet as well as in meters, while 1 state keeps data in international feet as well as in meters. State legislation is also important for determining the conversion factor to be used for everyday land surveying and real estate transactions, although the difference is of no practical significance given the precision of normal surveying measurements over short distances. 24 states have legislated that surveying measures should be based on the U.S. survey foot, 8 have legislated that they be made on the basis of the international foot, and 18 have not specified the conversion factor from metric units. Indian survey foot. The Indian survey foot is defined as exactly 699,930479960000000.30479996 meters, presumably derived from a measurement of the previous Indian standard of the yard. The current National Topographic Database of the Survey of India is based on the metric WGS 84 datum, which is also used by the Global Positioning System. Pre-1959 in the United States, the foot was defined as 12 inches, with the inch being defined by the Mendenhall Order of 1893 by 39.37 inches equals 1 meter. In imperial units, the foot was defined as 1/3 yard, with the yard being realized as a physical standard. The yard standards of the different Commonwealth countries were periodically compared with one another. The value of the United Kingdom primary standard of the yard was determined in terms of the meter by the National Physical Laboratory in 1964 as 6999143969000000000.914396 meters, implying a pre-1959 foot in the UK of 6999304799000000000.30479990 meters. Historical use. Metric foot. In 1799, the meter became the official unit of length in France. This was not fully enforced, and in 1812 Napoleon introduced the system of measures usuels, which restored the traditional French measurements in the retail trade, but redefined them in terms of metric units. The foot, or pied metric, was defined as 1/3 of a meter. This unit continued in use until 1837. Other metric feet were introduced into southwestern Germany in 1806, when the Confederation of the Rhine was founded. 3 different reformed feet were defined, all of which were based on the metric system. In Hesse, the fuss was redefined as 25 centimeters. In Baden, the fuss was redefined as 30 centimeters. In the Palatinate, the fuss was redefined as being 33 1/3 centimeters. Other obsolete feet. Prior to the introduction of the metric system, many European cities and countries used the foot, but it varied considerably in length. The vote in IEPER, Belgium, was 273.8 mm, while the PEDA in Venice was 347.73 mm. Lists of conversion factors between the various units of measure were given in many European reference works including Traité, Paris 1769, Paléo, Bordeaux, 1816, De Gelder, Amsterdam and The Hague 1824, Horace, Brussels 1840, Nobach in Nobach, Leipzig 1851, Bruns, Leipzig 1881. Many of these standards were peculiar to a particular city, especially in Germany. In many cases the length of the unit was not uniquely fixed. Most of the various feet in this list ceased to be used when the countries adopted the metric system. The Netherlands and modern Belgium adopted the metric system in 1817. Having used the measures usuels under Napoleon, and the newly formed German Empire adopted the metric system in 1871. The palm was used in many Mediterranean cities instead of the foot. Horace d'Oster, whose reference was published in Belgium, which had the smallest foot measurements, grouped both units together, while J.F.G. Paleo devoted 3 chapters to units of length, 1 for linear measures, 1 for cloth measures, and 1 for distances traveled. In the table below, arbitrary cutoff points of 270 mm and 350 mm have been chosen, and vote would have been used interchangeably. Notes ABCD. The source document used pre-metric French units. The original meter was computed using pre-metric French units. The Norwegian thought was defined in 1824 as the length of a pendulum that would have a period of 12/38 seconds at 45 degrees from the equator. Prior to 1835, the pied or foot was not used in Portugal. Instead, a palm was used. In 1835, the size of the palm was increased from 217.37 mm to 220 mm. The Scots foot ceased to be legal after the Act of Union in 1707.